Is the Samsung Galaxy A14 4G LTE worth buying? Well, in this video, we're going to find out. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, and this is the Galaxy A14. Now, to avoid any potential confusion, there are two different devices with the A14 name. There's this one, and also the A14 5G. Now, in a future video, I will be comparing those two devices, but they do share quite a few similarities, but at the same time, they are also different phones with different specifications and features. Now, at the time of me recording this video, this phone has not been officially launched in the US. However, I do anticipate that happening later on this year. So if you are located in the US, definitely stay on the lookout for when this phone is officially launched, and especially if you want to get it through a carrier, I'm sure you'll be able to get the phone at a very large discount. I know last year with the Galaxy A13, we got both the LTE only model and then also the A13 5G, so I'm expecting the same thing to happen this time around with the A14. Also keep in mind that based on the region that you're buying this phone in, some specifications might be different. For example, the storage might be different and also the processor. So there are two different processors offered with this phone based on the region that you're getting it in, and I will get into further detail regarding that later on in this video. But with all of that out of the way, just to avoid some potential confusion, let's now take a closer look at the actual phone itself. But before that, I want to show you what all comes included in the box. So here's the box. You can see right there, Galaxy A14. There's a picture of the phone right there. It is offered in a variety of different colors as well. So definitely take a look at the link in the video description to see what all the options are that are available. And then in the box, we're getting some literature. We're also getting a SIM card removal tool. And there's also a double-sided USB-C cable for charging and data transfer. But unfortunately, there is no USB wall adapter included in the box. Now, going into this review, you certainly shouldn't expect too much from this device, considering that it is one of the lowest end phones that Samsung does offer. Now, there are a few other phones that slot even further below this one, but this phone, the A04s, the A04, and the A04e are some of Samsung's entry-level options for this year. Now, despite it being an entry-level device, there's still quite a few things about it that do give us a lot of value here. Now, the first thing that is very impressive here with this device is the display. So with this phone, we're getting a very large 6.6-inch display. Now, the display itself features PLS LCD technology, and it is a 60 Hz display. So there is no faster refresh rate like you find with other phones out there, even in the budget segment. But again, for what it is, you shouldn't really expect to get that feature here. Now, on a more positive note, this display is 1080p. We're getting a PPI 400, a 20:9 aspect ratio, and an 80.2% screen-to-body ratio. Now, the display does get decently bright, and I'm also very impressed with the colors that we're getting here too. So in general, this phone will be very good for watching video content, also going on social media, doing various things like that, where having a good looking display really does make a difference. And then of course, having this very large canvas at 6.6 inches does make this phone very ideal for watching video content because you do get a very immersive experience here. Now up top here, we do have a water drop notch for the front facing camera, and that front camera is 13 megapixels. Now, overall, this phone does have decently small bezels, but the bottom bezel is a little bit thicker compared to the others. Now, there are multiple storage configurations being offered for this phone. This model of the device does feature 128 gigabytes, and there also is a 64 gig option available too. But as I mentioned earlier on in the video, based on the region that you're getting this phone in, you might not have a lot of different choices related to the storage configuration, so just keep that in mind. But in addition to that, this phone does support microSD card expansion, so you can at least add in an SD card to offload photos and videos, for example, to free up some of that internal space. Now, unfortunately, with this phone, there is no wireless charging, which is a bit disappointing, but at the same time, not a feature that I really expect to find with a phone in this segment. Now, this device does feature a fingerprint sensor on the power button, so let's give that a try right now. And it's very fast and responsive. Let's try that one more time. There we go, very quick and nice and reliable, so definitely a very convenient way to access the phone. But in addition to that, we also get Face Unlock here with the Galaxy A14. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A14, we are getting a triple camera setup on the back of the phone with a 50 megapixel main camera, a 5 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and a 2 megapixel macro camera. Now it's definitely a nice surprise though to see that we are getting an ultra wide camera, considering that with the A14 5G, that feature is not present. So even though this is a lower end phone, we are getting a lot of different options related to the various cameras and a lot of features that go along with them. Now here's how things look on the camera app. This is with the main rear camera right now. Then from there, we can switch over to the ultra wide angle camera to fit a lot more content into the frame. We can then head over to the macro camera by going to the More tab. You can see it's right there. And we can get very close up here and have things be in really good detail. Certainly a nice feature. We can also head over to portrait mode and get those nice blurred out backgrounds that I know that everybody's a big fan of. And there's even a slider here to adjust the blur level. So if you want more blur, you can do that, or less blur. And then flip it around to the front facing camera, we can take portrait selfies. So that's a nice feature too. We also still get that blur slider, and we also have an option here for group selfies. So it does crop out a little bit to fit more people in a single frame here. Now, in addition to that, you can take standard selfies too. So if you don't want that blurred background, then you don't necessarily have to have it. And then with this device, we are getting 1080p video recording for both the front and rear cameras. So unfortunately, you can't record videos in 4K. Now, taking a look at some camera samples here from the phone, I'm actually very impressed with the quality. I'll definitely let the results speak for themselves, as you can see them right here. But overall, this phone does an excellent job taking photos that are at least good enough to put on social media and put in a photo album and kind of save for future memories. So I don't think you're going to be disappointed. Now, of course, compared to a much more expensive smartphone, there is still quite a bit here to be desired. But at the same time, you know what you're getting into with a device like this one, since you're paying a fraction of the cost compared to a flagship phone. So again, for what it is, I think this phone does a plenty good job as far as the photo quality. But let's now take a look at some video samples from the Samsung Galaxy A14. What's going on, everyone? This is Kevin here, coming at you with a test video using the main rear camera on the Samsung Galaxy A14 4G LTE. Definitely let me know what you think about the video and audio quality. And we do have very quick autofocus in video mode, which is great. And here's an ultra-wide test video using the Samsung Galaxy A14 4G LTE. Now keep in mind, with this device, you cannot switch between the standard camera and ultra-wide camera in the same video clip. However, you can stop the video and restart it, and then switch over to the ultra-wide camera. And here is a front-facing test video using the Samsung Galaxy A14 4G LTE. Now for what it is, it does seem like this device does capture some pretty decent images with all the various cameras, and you really can't expect too much considering that it is a very entry-level device. Now with the Samsung Galaxy A14, we're getting 4GB of RAM paired up with the Samsung Exynos 850 processor, or the MediaTek Helio G80 based on the region that you're buying this phone in. So again, like I mentioned about the storage, and as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, based on where you get this phone, some of these specifications might be different. But just letting you know, for this specific device, the one I've been testing, it does have the Samsung Exynos 850. So if you do end up getting the version of the phone with MediaTek, you might have different performance, so keep that in mind. But overall, I do expect the performance to be pretty similar, considering that Samsung doesn't want to have two wildly different versions of the same device. Now I will admit, I am pretty disappointed with the performance of this device. I feel like it can get a bit laggy at times and a bit slow. And especially if you're restarting the phone, it does take a while for it to pretty much kind of catch up and get to a normal level of performance. So for example, I had recently restarted the phone and then I went to go take a video with it, and the video was actually really choppy and the audio even cut out halfway through the video. So those are glitches that I'm not really used to seeing with Samsung devices. So that did kind of catch me by surprise. But at the same time, again, for a lower end phone like this one, those are some compromises that do have to be made. I am glad at least that we have a really nice display here with the phone, and the build quality is nice, and we're also getting good cameras, but it does seem like they kind of gave us those nicer features while compromising with the processor that's in the phone. Now I did run a benchmark test using Geekbench 6, and here are the scores from that test. So I got a single core score of 207 and a multi-core score of 822. So what I recommend doing is running this test on your current phone and then compare your scores to these scores to get a better idea of how your current device compares to the Galaxy A14. Because with scores like this, it's certainly possible that this phone is a bit slower compared to your current device. And I'm sure you don't want to go through all the time and effort of getting a brand new smartphone and not have it actually perform faster than the phone that you have right now. Another downside with the processor of this device, and this really isn't unexpected considering that there is a specific 5G version of this phone, is that there is no 5G support. So at this point in 2023, I do think you can get by with just 4G LTE, but keep in mind that if you're going to go through all the time and effort of getting a brand new smartphone, you probably should get one that does support your carrier's latest and greatest network, especially as 5G continues to be expanded. So just know that there is no 5G support here with this device, which might not give it as much longevity compared to a 5G compatible phone. That might not be a deal breaker for you, but it is something that you still should keep in mind. Now with this device, we're getting a very large 5,000 milliamp hour internal battery, and this phone is compatible with 15-watt fast charging. So I am glad that we're at least getting a double-sided USB-C cable in the box, but at the same time, to get that full 15-watt fast charging, you will have to make sure that you're using a power adapter that actually supports that wattage. Now, you might already own one of those, but on the other hand, if all of your wall adapters are less than 15 watts, maybe 5 watts for example, then definitely expect the phone to recharge pretty slowly. So you will want to use a charger that's actually compatible with the fast charging on this device to get that full charging speed. But at least with that 5,000 milliamp hour battery, you should expect to get very good battery life here with the phone, definitely a full day of usage, if not multiple days. Now the software with this device is Android 13, running Samsung's One UI 5. Now overall, it's a very familiar experience if you've used a Samsung phone anytime recently, and if you are upgrading from a Samsung phone, there's pretty much no learning curve here with this device, as they do keep their software pretty similar, but at the same time, over time, they do add in extra features. Now, I actually like Samsung software quite a bit because I feel like it's pretty free of bugs, which is certainly a good thing, and in general, it does run well even on lower end hardware like this device. And then another awesome thing with this phone is that it does feature NFC. Now, NFC is a technology used for mobile contactless payments, to do tap and pay, for example, so that's a feature that I personally use quite a bit. I know that it's getting more and more popular as time's gone on, especially in the last few years, so it is great to see that this phone does have it. However, keep in mind that similar to other specifications that might be different based on your region, it is possible that you might end up getting a version of this phone that doesn't actually have NFC. So definitely double check that. How affordable this device is. Of course, if you're not spending too much on a smartphone, you shouldn't expect to get... Now the speakers on this phone are pretty decent, however, they're not necessarily the loudest out there, and this phone also doesn't support stereo sound. But at least the speakers are good enough that you can sit back and relax and enjoy video content or enjoy listening to music. But when it comes to actually watching videos, I am very happy with this very large display here. Of course, it is 1080p, which does make things appear very crisp and clear, and you can always crop in for a very immersive video viewing experience. So in general, I'm pretty happy here with this phone when it comes to using it for content consumption. But taking a closer look at the hardware of this device, I've already talked quite a bit about the front panel here. We have pretty small bezels all throughout, however a thicker bottom bezel, and then also a water drop notch up top. Now this phone is made completely of plastic, besides the display, which is glass, so I do recommend pairing this phone up with a case so that the phone doesn't get scratched up. Now this material they're using here, this kind of frosted plastic material, does look really nice, and I do appreciate that the phone really doesn't pick up any fingerprints. But taking a look at the left side of the device, we have the slot for the micro SD card and SIM card. Then on the right side, we have volume up, volume down, and also the power button, which doubles as the fingerprint sensor. Then up top here, we have the noise canceling microphone. And then on the bottom, we have the 3.5mm headphone jack, microphone, USB-C port for charging and data transfer, and we have the speaker. And then on the back of the phone, we have the camera module, flash, and Samsung logo. So in conclusion, I think the only situation where you should actually get this phone is if it's offered with some really generous promotions. For example, I'm expecting the prepaid carriers to offer the Galaxy A14 for free if you're switching in from another carrier, for example, and in that situation, I can see how this phone is worth it. But on the other hand, if you're going to pay full price for this device, there's a lot of other options out there that are more capable, and I've covered many of them here on the channel. And I would probably go for the A14 5G over this device. Really the only benefit with the regular A14 compared to its 5G counterpart is that with this phone, we are getting an ultra-wide camera. But beyond that, I don't think there's really any other reasons to go for this phone, and the biggest frustration certainly has to be that the processor is pretty slow. If the processor was faster here with this phone, then I would say that there really aren't a lot of downsides with it, and really the only downside would be the lack of 5G support. But hopefully all that makes sense, and hopefully you learned something new from this video today, but this concludes my review of the Samsung Galaxy A14. Take care, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.